How's it going out there, folks? Great to see you. Happy Monday night. Sorry for being a little tardy. I had some technical issues, but they have since been resolved. I'm going to play some music just to get myself kind of centered and in the zone, and then we'll go ahead and meditate and talk about some mindfulness stuff. Let's do this. There we go. Sweet. There's a tune called Old Grimes. I heard it on a Norman and Nancy Blake record, but I don't know where that one comes from. I tried to look it up once, and some folks said maybe Norman and Nancy, but I'm not sure. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. Sorry, folks. I should have a better backstory for the tune than that. It's good to see everyone out there in the chat. Welcome to Elliot, Lewis, Leslie, and Matt. I like it. It's Leslie and Matt, but then Matt comes in with his own handle and is like, no, this is me, people. Not that Leslie and Matt account. That's fake. Johnny's out there up in Michigan. Good to see you, Johnny. Brent from Hilliard, Ohio. Good to see you out there, buddy. Saw him down in Mount Sterling, Ohio the other night. Played a gig with a great radio personality and colleague of Brent's and amazing mandolin player as well named Rich Baker. That was real fun. I got to play some guitar. I'm not used to strapping on the flat top these days when I'm going out for gigs, so that was fun. Good to see you out there, Lewis, Sans Becky. Hope she's having a good time at yoga class. That's a very great mindfulness practice. Much better than listening to some dude in a corduroy hat ramble. And who else? Okay, Loco Joe, obviously. Good to see you out there, buddy. Yeah. I did get the email for the tab and everything. That's great, man. I'm looking forward to that. Me and Joe, we've got plans, people. He took me seriously about that podcast thing last week. Well, I'm going to stop yakking, and let's do some meditation time, and then we can kind of chat a little bit if we want to, conversationalize. I'm gonna get my timer pulled up here. As always, let's go for 5, and just in case we have anyone new, I see we've got quite a few folks out there tonight, but if we've got anyone new, let's run through the routine here. So for mindfulness meditation, we want to be in a nice, relaxed position. I'm lowering my chair to get my feet more flat on the ground. But I like to start with my feet. If we're going from the bottom up, feet kind of planted on the ground in a relaxed fashion. You want your knees to be about at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to be like hunched in or like have your knees up in your chest or anything like that. Nice relaxed position. Maybe shake the neck out, roll it around a little bit. And the thing I like to think about, as I always say, imagine right in the back of the crown of your head there. Not like the middle of your head, but the crown, I was told from my meditation coach, Adam. He was saying kind of that point on the crown of your head. Imagine a string kind of gently being drawn toward the ceiling, attached to that crown. And what you see, so if I imagine the middle of my head, my chin is out a little more. But if I imagine kind of the crown, then it tucks my chin in a little bit. So once you find a nice kind of upright position there, put your hands in your lap. Take a deep breath in. Let's meditate for 5 minutes. The point of this type of meditation is to keep your focus on your anchor, which in my case is the breath. If your mind wanders from that and if thoughts start to creep in, just label them thinking and come straight back to the breath. Label without judgment. Just say thinking and then come straight back. Well, there you have it, folks. Another 5 minutes of practice. Hopefully that was good for you. I know it felt pretty dang good for me. If you want to, go ahead and type a number in the chat box on a scale from 1 to 10 and evaluate your own session here tonight. I'm going to give myself a solid 7. I'm feeling 7-ish. Raise the chair again. Nice. Matt says 8. Good job, buddy. No surprises there. You guys are mindfulness pros. Lewis is at a 7.5. See, man, you don't need Becky all the time. You can let the safety net go every now and again. Johnny's at a 5. That's great. Brent 6. Yeah, Leslie said, I think it was a 5 or 6. I started to settle in just as it was ending. I kind of felt a little bit that way today, too. Honestly, anymore for me, Leslie, it takes about... I usually do minimum like a 15-minute meditation. I try to get a half-hour one in if I can, which is like, who can carve out a half hour of their day to like sit and stare at the wall, you know, right? But mostly because I think it takes me so long to get settled, you know, get through the process of getting settled. Jacob's at a 7. Elliot's a 7. Wow, Loco Joe. Nice and relaxed. Not quite Nirvana, but a solid 8.5. I think that's about as close as it gets, man. Yeah, because, like, yeah. That's maybe another good question, too. Leslie said half hour, you know. Yeah, the half hour for me is, like, it's golden when it happens, but it's rare that I can get one of those in. So I usually do a 15-minute meditation at the beginning of my practice session every day is kind of how it works, and then one later at night if I can manage it. The coach that I was working with was suggesting 2 meditations a day, totaling an hour if possible, and I was just like, oh God, like that's, to me, giving up an hour of my day is like a lot. You know, we think about giving up an hour of our days as a lot, and then, you know, I realized that my phone tells me that I spent an hour on the YouTube, Instagram, and whatever apps and everything like that. So it's like, well, probably could have been meditating. But a question I wanted to ask, kind of related to that, is how much do you folks meditate out there? Like in minutes, if you were to quantify in minutes, how long do you meditate every day? Joe says you're not really giving that hour up, are you? It does give back. Yes, I absolutely, my friend. I agree with that. Yeah, it's hard for me. It's, you know, being conditioned by, I'll go ahead and say, like, the American style of work mentality. I feel like, at least where I grew up, it's like you better be doing something productive all the time. You know what I mean? And if you're like, a lot of people, that does not fit with the traditional idea of productivity where I'm from. So that's probably me trying to get over myself in terms of like justifying an hour of sitting on a cushion every day and focusing on my breath, right? But yeah, I feel every Sunday my wife and I do an hour-long meditation, and that's man, to me, that's like trying to run a marathon every Sunday at this point. You know, I do it, and it feels good after having done it. I would say in that hour, I get like maybe 30 minutes of solid meditation in there. Sometimes less, sometimes more, you know. Jacob says he meditates 5 minutes a day. That's great. Elliot says retirees have long since quit worrying about productivity. Well, then how much do you meditate, Elliot? I want to know your meditation minutes, buddy. Nice. Lewis says hard to quantify. Whenever I get a moment, I try to relax and clear my mind. That's a good thing. Doing just kind of like a little mindfulness check when you can. I think that's kind of like my meditation coach talks about, like the on the cushion and off the cushion practice. You know, on the cushion is like I'm sitting down for 20 minutes right now and I'm going to meditate. And then the off the cushion practice is kind of like what you're talking about, Lewis, where it's like when you're going about your daily activities, can you just like stop and notice something inside of your body, you know, at various intervals. Nice. Leslie says, I usually do at least 5 minutes most days, 7 to 10 minutes ideally. That's great. I think that's a solid number to shoot for, in my opinion. Like I said, 15 minutes helps me feel like I'm settled. But then if I go much beyond that, then I start to get antsy. You know, there's like this balance that I have right now. Yeah, Elliot says probably 5 in spurts. That's great. Joe says not very regular myself. I'm gonna admit I'll usually short sessions of 5 to 10 minutes when I feel I need it. I think that's a great practice. And sometimes it can't. You know, I think using it as a kind of a remedy in times of stress are great. I think it's one of those things, and this is kind of what I was going to talk about today. So this is cool too. It's kind of a segue. But some of the teachers at the local Buddhist center were kind of talking about this in their weekly, you know, Dharma talk, they call it, about like, you know, we don't just practice for the bad days. You know, you practice every day, and then that kind of helps even the bad ones out, you know. And I that kind of resonated with me. Lewis being retired, we're talking about it other than nap time. You, that's great. I'm so jealous of that. Nice. Matt says I don't do it every day, but between 5 and 15 minutes when I do. That's great, man. So it seems like most of us are in the 15-minute club. You know what I mean? We're kind of I dig that. I think that's very good. Remember, I said this is a learn with me, not from me kind of thing, and I feel like I'm right at the beginning of this like meditation journey thing. You know, I do it every week with you folks just because I know I need it. But yeah, whenever I start to talk about these numbers, it's really comforting to me, I guess, to hear that most people that in my circle that do meditate do it for about as much time as I do. Because like talking to some of these like professional meditators, you know what I mean? It's like an hour a day. Holy smokes. It's cool stuff though. I envy them for their ability to focus, because that's really, I think, what it boils down to for me. Like it's not that I think an hour would be impossible, but cultivating the time to develop that focus and everything. That's you know, just like learning an instrument or something, right? Like getting your 10,000 hours in to get really good at the instrument. I think you got to do the same thing for meditation. Oh, excuse me. But this past weekend, that's kind of cool stuff that we're on this topic now. This past weekend, this guy named Lama Tom at the local Buddhist center is a real cool dude. I must admit, I'm usually, a lot of times I'll go to the Sunday meditations at my local Buddhist temple just because it's a really beautiful space and whatnot. But I usually don't stick around for a lot of the like Buddhist churchy type things. You know what I mean? And this week we stuck around. I was happy to do that. And it's great because the talks aren't so much like sermons. It's more just like these three very humble people that run this Buddhist center kind of imparting some advice that they've learned over the years. I really like their style of teaching. It's not like they don't proselytize, and everything seems to kind of relate to general everyday philosophy and just how to live, you know? So this one was a really cool talk because they were talking about the importance of finding a teacher. And I think the practice and the teacher thing kind of go hand in hand, because Lama Tom began this talk by talking about the importance of, you know, of practice. And when he means practice, he's talking about meditation. But I think we can for us tonight kind of steer the term practice maybe back toward these things if we want, right? Because most of us are musicians out there. So I took some notes, and I'm just going to like read off of those and like riff on it a little bit. But he said, doing the practice offers us confidence in the practice. That is the blessing. And I like, as soon as he said that, I was like, that's amazing. You know, it's like such a simple thought, but it's exactly what I felt on the mandolin and the guitar. By sitting down and doing the thing for any set regular period of time. Say you do 10 minutes a day and you do it for 5 days in a row. At the end of those 5 days, you feel more confident. Usually, I know like we like to hate on our own practice and stuff like that. But if you're doing the right kind of practice, you feel confident in what you just accomplished, which makes you want to go back and do it more, which is the kind of catalyst and the fuel for progress. But doing the practice offers us confidence in the practice. I thought that was a really cool kind of way of framing it, you know. So he kind of goes on to say that, like, essentially in your practice journey, you're going to need some sort of accountability source. This is what I kind of took. I'm very heavily paraphrasing what he's saying here, but I kind of like to zoom out on these conversations and see how does this actually apply to me. And in any kind of general daily practice, and I've found this with instruments over the years. This is why I, like, in the last 5 years have started studying with my own kind of like gurus again, instead of just like trying to practice every day and get better. Because having an accountability source, not only is it like some kind of punitive or like figure to tell you what you're doing wrong when you're doing wrong, it's almost just like the way that Lama Tom almost describes this is like it's a source of inspiration rather than some kind of punitive or authoritative kind of force in your life. To have a teacher means that you have someone that you can look at like they're a little further down the road, and if I keep following this path, that's where I can go, you know, and that's kind of amazing to realize. So having a teacher, and this is, I talked about this last week, you know, but it seemed like this topic was clinging to the air, so I wanted to talk about it again. And this is where I'll stop and say, no matter what you're doing right now, whether it's music or any kind of skill you're trying to cultivate, find someone who can help you, or someone who is a source of inspiration and generosity that you can kind of look to as a model, because I think that's really important. And you know, there was a period between maybe like 2017 and 2020 where like I didn't feel inspired at all musically and wasn't making progress, and I was doing all the things. I was practicing every day. I was practicing hours a day, in fact, and all this kind of stuff, but wasn't making the progress I wanted to. And it dawned on me just this past year, like, well, duh, I haven't had a teacher. I haven't talked to an expert on this in years, you know? Like passing conversations at camps, but not like, hey, man, here's $80. Let's sit down for an hour and talk about this, you know? So I think that's a good thing to kind of take from Tom's conversation. You know, if you just start today and start practicing and do it for 5 days in a row, that's going to build some kind of foundation for you to look back on and be proud of, and to help give you some confidence. Also, tied into that, give yourself a source of inspiration that will be more likely to keep you on that path. And you know, I suppose the argument could be made that you don't need an in-person teacher or anything like that. You could have like other resources like books and videos and things like that. And that can be the case. But I think even if you're going to get like technical skills from non-human form, you should still have some sort of empathetic human figure who's on this same path that you can share this with. I think that's kind of the main vibe of what Tom's getting at. Checking back into the chat box to make sure I'm not losing anyone. Oh, nice, Joe. Joe says, my accountability source is my own compositions. I write stuff that's way above my head and work towards that. Of course, as I journey and learn, these are bound to change. Absolutely. Yeah, creating etudes for yourself. I think that's kind of what Tom was getting at. You know, because if you think about your career on anything, really, you don't need a teacher there holding your hand the entire way. There are going to be long stretches where, in fact, it's just you needing to do the work, whatever that is, right? If we're talking about instrument work or meditation, like practice can mean whatever we want it to mean tonight. So if you're on that path, you're going to have long stretches where you've got the devices like Joe's talking about here to like pull you to the next level, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think the best musicians write their own technical exercises that they then need to like overcome. I know Tiny and Jethro did this kind of stuff. Joe K. Walsh, great mandolin player, talks about this stuff. Yeah, that's awesome, Joe. Joe's a pretty deep guy, I think, What are some other things that Tom was talking about here that might relate to what we're talking about tonight? Yeah, just some other general things about like staying on the path, practicing, and having a teacher. Like he got on this whole thread about devotion, and we don't need to really think about like the sentimental kind of way of devotion. We're simply just talking like committing yourself to any kind of path, right? And he said that like genuine interest in what you're studying plus respect for what you're studying equals devotion, should lead to devotion. And then that devotion helps you understand the continued teachings of whatever kind of thing you're studying, whether that be music or meditation. So once again, like genuine interest plus respect for the topic equals devotion, and devotion helps you understand the teachings. And I think that's part of it, right? Like that can get so hard for us as musicians to kind of continually make progress, because if you don't have a regular practice schedule, then in my opinion you don't have that like regular chance to check in with your like respect and love and interest in this topic, which never really leads to like deep growth. You know what I mean? It's almost like practice is like water that seeps into concrete. Like it takes a while for it to drip away, but as soon as there's a crack in there, if you keep pouring water in, it can cause bigger and bigger gaps to happen. And I think that's the way it is with practice. Like it seems like you're not doing much at the beginning or even for a long time, right? But if you just keep doing the daily build or the weekly build, however you practice, it doesn't have to be every day, but regular is going to make it stick. And I think Tom was really kind of, he uses simple words, and this is what I love about some of these teachers that I found. They use very simple words to describe these things that you can just ponder for hours. I'm like, holy crap, it really makes you reckon with what you say you want and what you actually want, as it relates to any skill set, and that maybe sound a kind of harsh, right? But a lot of us say that we want to get really good at something. I say this all the time. Like, I wanted to get good at lutherie. Jacob's here on the freaking like stream. I'll get real with him. Like, I just can't find the time to practice like building instruments. We've cranked a couple out and it's been really fun, and I still plan on cranking more out. But like, I'm never gonna be great at building instruments because I don't do the regular practice, which doesn't cultivate the interest. It doesn't build this critical mass of information that gets me more fired up about diving into it. So yeah, I think all of this, you have to build yourself an ecosystem for learning and growth, is kind of what Tom was getting to in his talk here. And I think a teacher is a hefty part of that, So just to kind of put a button on that little meandering spiel, finding a teacher, finding a path, and then just committing to the work. That's really what it is. It's like a three-pronged kind of thing. So if you're not doing well in some kind of practice that you're going for right now, I bet if you analyze those three kind of areas, and you will find a deficiency in one of them if you're dissatisfied with your progress. Johnny says, having a teacher to explore new areas of music that were foreign to me and to bounce things off of to make sure I'm on the right track has been invaluable. Nice, man. Well, I'm happy to have been part of that journey. That's awesome, Johnny. Jacob says, hey, man, it's all good. I knew it would be all good, dude. But still, you got to get real, right? Like how many things do we all say we want, and we're like, oh, my God, I want that so bad. I would die to, like, play like this person or to do, you know, to like, yeah, play any sport like this person or do whatever. Like, Loco Joe and I had a chat last week. Like, there's no secret to this stuff. You just got to do it. You know what I mean? Like, Joe had a really good quote that I'll save for the podcast that we're going to do together. But, like, that was essentially what he was getting at, you know? Like, you have to, like, trust the fact that the people that accomplish the things that you want to accomplish are humans themselves and are probably closer to the norm than the exception than you would like to think, you know? Obviously Chris Thiele and all that kind of stuff, they started when they're 3 and this and that and the other, so they just had a head start on the rest of us. But, like, I know tons of great players who didn't start really taking it seriously until they were teenagers and in their 20s and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's nothing holding you back. Yeah, Joe says something really good too. The more you practice, the quicker you get back into it after not doing it for a while. Absolutely, my friend. I think I admitted to you guys last week that, yeah, because I had just gotten back from Montreal. Like, I hadn't meditated for an entire week, which is weird for me. You know, like, every day is kind of I've made it at least that much of my daily life, and to have not done it for a week sucked and felt weird. But I only took a week off, and it was fine afterwards, you know. It's the same with mandolin and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, practice really does kind of help build a lot of critical infrastructure that just kind of, like, gently guides you back to it. You know what I mean? You're, like, creating, like, some kind of, like, channel or divot, you know, that you just kind of, like, keep floating back into. It's like, oh, there's practice again. I'm back into it. Yeah, Leslie's. I knew Leslie would have something to say about this because I feel like this is. Yeah. She says, I've often found when I actually start to do the things I say I want that I didn't really want them. Just like the idea of it. It's a practice to accept realizing that too. Absolutely. That's something that's honestly, Leslie, for me, been a real challenge in my adult life because I think I was brought up. My parents were very great about this. I never felt like limited in what I could do as a child, but when you grow up with that mindset, it becomes harder to realize that all of those things you said you wanted to do when you were a kid, it's like, oh God, well, I'm 35 now. I don't know if I can become an astronaut, you know, at this point. But you get what I'm saying, you know, like there's just like less time in the day, and you realize the work that it does actually take to develop these things, you know. It's the idea of it can be very inspiring. But the reality of what you can accomplish is unfortunately much more limited, I think, right? Yeah, I think she's with me. I see there in the chat. Yeah, that's hard realization kind of stuff, you know? Like, this is the stuff that I think, like, I hear my, like, grandparents and my father's generation complaining about because, you know, millennials were all, like, pie in the sky and you can accomplish anything, man, right? It's like, well, you guys told us we could. Somebody needed to douse us with a hefty, you know, dose of realism or something like that. That's great. Yeah, man. It isn't. I will say this though, Leslie. Like, I have to limit my expectations on some of those things. But you can actually, some of them we can actually still get into, and you can develop skills just in a more limited way than maybe we wanted to. But determining the true want is the key there, right? You know, it's like, well, is this something that I'm actually interested in maybe sort of doing on the side and being happy that I'm only doing it 5 minutes a day? Or is this just a thing that sounded like a really cool idea, and now that I'm in the middle of doing the work for it, it's like awful? For me, that was like learning to become a web developer. I was like, oh man, I'm changing careers. I'm going to be a web developer. There's so much opportunity. It's really technical and it'll be fun. and then I'm like seriously like 7 months into like an online, like a free online boot camp, and I'm like, this ain't working. I'm out. Back to the mandolin. Life slaps you sometimes, you know? Well, folks, I'm feeling like I'm going to play a tune, and then if you've got anything to say in the chat, you're more than welcome to, but I honestly might end things a little early tonight, if not. It's been good chatting with you folks, though. I really enjoy getting to talk about this stuff. It's just me musing about stuff smart people have said and wondering if I'm getting it right, you know? Oh, what's a good tune? Here's a tune. How about some Billy in the Low Ground? Actually, alright, here's the deal. Do we want like a medium tempo tune, or do you want to see me like potentially fall on my face and play something like really fast? We're talking like 150 beats per minute kind of fast. Oh my god, Lewis says web developers don't pick up the chicks like the mandolin players. I don't know, dude. Playing mandolin has driven my wife further to the other end of the house than I ever could have possibly imagined. Hopefully Quinn's not on the stream. Nice. Johnny says shred. Oh man, Loco Joe says new Camptown races at 160. I'm gonna try that, just a second of it, just to see, like, completely see how awful that is. Are you folks ready to see me completely fall on my face? All right, Joe. I'm gonna see if I can even make it through one time on this one, okay, man? Ooh. That's burning, buddy. That's burning. 160. Yeah, challenge accepted, baby. I'm into it. Oof, oof. Do you all hear that? All right, here we go. Oof, oof, oof. Well, there you have it, folks. A really, okay, if I'm going to rate myself on that one, I'll give myself a 75. Right? Most of the tune was there. Most of the tune was there, but it fell off the tracks at one point. That was a 10% deduction when I didn't get that descending lick. Yeah. Matt says he hears the chicks coming. No, that's just my cats scratching at the door, dude. That's funny. Oh, man. Thanks, Joe. He says, wow, that's impressive. Did not see that coming. Yeah, man. Next time it'll be better for you, I promise. Johnny says that was great. Feely who? Yeah, right, man. Thanks for the kind words, Elliot. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah. Magnus and I tell you what, so that teacher conversation I was just trying to have, like, Magnus Zetterlund was actually the inspiration for a lot of this, because I said around 2020 was when I started kind of realizing, oh, duh, I need a teacher. That's when I started working with Magnus, and we would have all these conversations and kind of push each other, you know, like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, and start talking about different right-hand stuff for speed picking. This is all, like, related, I swear. He was, I would call Magnus my teacher for a little while. He was one of those guys that was just like along the way, you know, like if you're running a marathon, he's like one of those water checkpoints, you know what I mean? It's like, here you go, man, here's some stuff to like keep you going further down the path. And then I started working with some like heavy hitter players. Like Magnus just started taking a few lessons with Jacob Jolliffe, and I was working with Don Stierenberg and stuff. So like talking to good people helps, but having pals around who are good and can provide that fuel is also good too. Because then you can play New Camptown races at 160 beats per minute, sort of. Nice. George Welling, faster than strictly necessary. That's my bass player out there, folks. I love it. Good to see you out there, George. Faster than strictly necessary. You bet it was, buddy. Oh, man. Well, gang, I think I'm going to keep this one inside of an hour tonight. I think that was pretty fun. That's a good way to end. New Camptown races at 160 BPMs. Kind of sloppy, but who cares, right? But for any of you, whether you're trying to get better at music or meditation or whatever, find a teacher. And all of you know me personally. I know all of you personally at this point. If you want recommendations, please reach out to me. You know what I mean? Even if it's not, like, you don't have to ask me for lessons because I might be more of an equal than a teacher for you at this point. You know what I mean? Which is cool. That's how it all works. But if you need some recommendations to kind of like help build that critical mass of inspiration to kind of keep you on the path, then let me know, because I love sharing this with people, sharing music and sharing this kind of like journey of self-betterment and all that kind of stuff. So let's absolutely stay in touch and let me know if I can help you in any way. All right? All right, gang. Leslie and Matt, great to see you folks out there. I will respond to your email very shortly. my apologies on that. But yes, you guys are right after Loco Joe in line for podcast recording. So definitely give Leslie and Matt a shout. Great to see you, Lewis, Elliot, George, Brent, Johnny, my man Johnny, Loco Joe, Jacob Hawkins. Who else am I missing out there? Don't want to miss anyone else. I think that's it, folks. Cool. Well, take it easy, gang. So great to chill with you. We'll love these Monday night sessions. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time. And for all my Americans out there, I think most of us are Americans, happy Thanksgiving. And enjoy your holiday Thursday. If you don't have anywhere to go, give me a shout. Peace out, y'all.